The morning began like any other inside the large mansion owned by Mr. Romano, a powerful businessman known across the city. His home was always full of workers, visitors, and people who respected him. But on this day, the atmosphere felt completely different. The walls seemed quieter, the rooms darker, and the air heavier. Everyone inside could sense that something was wrong. The reason for this silence was simple. Mr. Romano's only son, Leo, had become sick with a strange illness that no one could understand. Leo was a bright, gentle boy with big hopeful eyes, always excited about life. But for the past several weeks, his energy faded slowly. First, he became tired easily. Then his appetite disappeared. Soon, he began to feel dizzy and weak. The family doctor could not figure out what was happening. He checked Leo again and again, took notes, and even ordered tests, yet every result confused him. His medical reports looked normal, but Leo kept getting worse. Mr. Romano tried to remain calm in front of others. He was a strong man who never showed fear, never let problems shake him. But when it came to his son, his heart felt different. Leo was everything to him, his pride, his joy, the reason he worked so hard every day. Seeing the boy lying in bed with a tired face and slow breathing broke something inside him. When the first doctor failed, Mr. Romano called another. Then another. Soon, it became a long list: specialists from major hospitals, experts from different cities, even famous doctors known for solving difficult cases. One after another, they arrived at the mansion, each carrying expensive equipment and speaking in serious voices. The entire house turned into a medical center. Workers moved chairs, brought water, guided doctors to the boy's room, and stood outside waiting for news. But every visit ended the same way. The doctor would walk out with a heavy sigh, shake his head gently and say, "We are not sure yet. We need more time." More time. Those two words became painful for the family. Leo's mother tried to comfort him with soft stories and warm blankets. She stayed by his side day and night, holding his small hand. But even her presence could not hide her worry. Sometimes she stepped outside the room to wipe her tears because she didn't want Leo to see her crying. The mansion staff saw her and lowered their heads. Feeling the fear growing inside the household. In the middle of all this, there was one man who walked through the mansion quietly every day: Mr. Harris, the janitor from the building where the family usually took Leo for medical tests. He was not a doctor, not a specialist, and not someone people paid attention to. He wore simple clothes, carried a mop and bucket, and moved gently from one hallway to another. He was known for being polite, calm, and always helpful. When the tests became frequent, the family started using a private medical building owned by Mr. Romano. This building was where Mr. Harris worked. While cleaning floors and wiping windows, he saw doctors rushing in and out. He saw nurses whispering in small groups. He saw the tired face of Mr. Romano walking past him many times. Mr. Harris was a silent observer. He never interrupted anyone, but he listened. He noticed details that others ignored. Every day, he heard the doctors discussing the boy's condition. "His results are normal, but he keeps getting weaker," one doctor said. "It makes no sense," another replied. "This is not a common illness." Hearing these words again and again made Mr. Harris think deeply. He had once studied basic medicine when he was younger. He couldn't afford to continue school, so he left and worked simple jobs. But the knowledge stayed in his mind. He read books on health during his free time, watched medical documentaries, and learned things out of pure curiosity. One afternoon, while sweeping a hallway, he heard a faint sound from inside one of the rooms. It was Leo speaking quietly, trying to answer a doctor's question. His voice was weak, but something about the way he breathed caught Mr. Harris's attention. The sound reminded him of something he had read many years ago, something rare, something doctors often overlooked when they focused only on tests. He paused for a moment, leaning on his mop. He didn't want to believe his own thought, because he was not a doctor. He told himself, maybe I am imagining things. Maybe this is not my place. But the worry in the father's voice he heard earlier stayed in his mind. Later that day, Mr. Harris saw Mr. Romano standing alone near the entrance of the building. The man looked tired, his shoulders heavy, his eyes filled with fear. It was the first time Mr. Harris saw him look so defeated. Something inside the janitor softened. He wanted to say something, anything that might offer comfort, but he stayed silent. After all, who would listen to a janitor when even top doctors had no answers? Still, the strange idea remained in his mind like a quiet whisper. Maybe I can help. Maybe I know what this is. He didn't speak the words out loud. Not yet. But the thought was there, calm, steady, confident, and soon, fate would test whether he was right. Mr. Harris arrived early the next morning, as he always did. The sun had not fully risen yet, and the medical building still felt quiet and cool. He pushed his cleaning cart through the hallway, thinking about the boy he saw yesterday. Most workers came in, talked loudly, and rushed from room to room, but Mr. Harris always moved calmly. He believed that quiet steps helped him notice things other people missed. While he cleaned the main lobby, a group of nurses entered, carrying files and talking in low voices. Mr. Harris kept his head down, but his ears picked up their words easily. They tried another test, one nurse said, and another asked. No answer. Again, a short silence followed. Even without looking, Mr. Harris could imagine the worried expressions on their faces. Every conversation he heard sounded the same: doctors confused, nurses uncertain, the family losing hope. He could almost feel the stress filling the building like invisible smoke. As he wiped down the lobby counter, his mind returned to the sound of Leo's breathing. It wasn't loud or strange, but it was different. It reminded him of something he once studied in an old medical book. He had never forgotten that description because it was so rare. It made him wonder, why haven't the doctors noticed it? But then he immediately answered his own question, because they were all searching in another direction, focusing on complicated tests and machines instead of small details. Mr. Harris finished cleaning the lobby and continued to the east hallway. There, he saw a long line of doctors entering the building, each wearing white coats and carrying serious faces. Some nodded politely at him, but most walked past without noticing him at all. He didn't mind. He was used to being invisible. He had spent years working quietly, blending into the background like furniture, but today felt different. Today, he felt a strange pull inside his chest, telling him to pay attention. As he swept the hallway, he saw Mr. Romano step out of an office with a specialist from another city. Their voices were low, but the worry in them was hard to miss. We will run more tests, the doctor said. How long will it take? Mr. Romano asked. A few days. Mr. Romano closed his eyes for a moment. My son is getting weaker. We don't have days. Mr. Harris slowed his sweeping. His heart tightened. He wished someone, anyone, would ask the right question or check the right detail. But no one seemed to see what he saw. After the doctor left, Mr. Romano stood alone, staring at the floor. Mr. Harris did not want to interrupt him, but his footsteps accidentally brushed against the tiles. The sound made Mr. Romano look up. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Mr. Harris quickly lowered his gaze and nodded respectfully. He was just a janitor after all. But something in Mr. Romano's eyes said he recognized him, not by name, but as the quiet man who was always around, always watching. A soft voice reached the hallway. Leo? Both men turned. It was Mrs. Romano, gently guiding her son through the hallway. Leo looked pale but slightly better. He leaned on his mother's arm, walking slowly. The new environment seemed to give him a little strength. Mr. Harris froze for a moment, watching the boy carefully. He wasn't staring out of curiosity, it was instinct. His eyes focused on the boy's small movements, His breathing pattern, the way he held his chest, his reaction to the hallway lights. Every detail added to the picture forming in Mr. Harris's mind. Mrs. Romano smiled kindly at Mr. Harris, even though she was deeply worried. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning, ma'am," he replied softly. His voice was always calm, warm. Never rushed. Leo looked up at him with weak eyes. Mr. Harris bent slightly and whispered, "Stay strong, young man." The boy gave a tiny smile before moving on. That small smile shook something inside Mr. Harris. It felt like a quiet message. Almost like the boy was saying, "Please don't give up on me." Even though he hadn't spoken those words. Once they passed, Mr. Harris returned to his cleaning. But his mind didn't. The more he thought about Leo's symptoms, the more certain he became that this wasn't a sickness at all. It was something subtle, something environmental, something around Leo, not inside him. At lunchtime, Mr. Harris sat outside on a bench, eating a simple sandwich. Two doctors sat nearby, discussing the case again. "It's unbelievable," one said. "Everything looks normal. How does a child fall sick without any reason?" "There must be something we're missing," the other replied. Mr. Harris remained silent, but his mind whispered, "You are missing something. But it's small, not big." His thoughts raced back to the old medical book he read many years ago. The symptoms matched almost perfectly: slow weakness, loss of appetite, dizziness, sensitivity to certain environments. It had been a chapter about rare allergic reactions caused by everyday household items. The memory grew clearer. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from a growing belief that he might actually know the answer. Still, he stayed quiet. Afternoon passed, and the building remained busy. Doctors walked quickly, nurses checked charts, and the Romano family moved from room to room. But around all this activity, Mr. Harris continued to work, mopping floors, cleaning windows, emptying trash. And observing every small detail, every sound, every expression, quietly, patiently, like someone piecing together a forgotten puzzle. By the end of the day, he felt something new, something strong, a decision forming inside him, a whisper inside his heart. Maybe I can help. Maybe I should speak. He didn't know how the day would end or whether anyone would listen to him. But one thing was clear: he could no longer stay silent. Mr. Romano was a man known for his strength. In business meetings, he spoke with confidence. In public events, people admired his power and discipline. He never showed fear, never allowed emotions to weaken him in front of others. But now, none of that confidence mattered. Every time he looked at his son Leo, lying quietly with tired eyes, a different kind of fear entered his heart, one he had never felt before. That morning, he stood by the large window of the mansion, staring outside even though he saw nothing. His mind was far away, lost in worry. The sun was shining, but for him, the day felt cold. His wife walked in holding a warm drink. "You need rest," she whispered softly. He shook his head. "How can I rest?" Leo still has no answer. Her eyes lowered. She gently placed her hand over his. They both stayed silent for a moment. Silence had become normal in the mansion. Everyone walked quietly, spoke softly, and moved carefully as if any loud noise could disturb the fragile hope inside the house. A few minutes later, a doctor entered with a clipboard. Mr. Romano turned instantly, hopeful but afraid. "Any news?" he asked. The doctor's face said everything before he even spoke. His voice was respectful but uncertain. "We still have no explanation. His tests are clean. There is no common illness." Mr. Romano's shoulders dropped. He thanked the doctor politely, but inside, his heart broke a little more. After the doctor left, his wife wrapped her arms around him. "We will find an answer," she whispered, though her voice was cracking. "We must believe." He nodded, but belief was getting harder. Later in the day, Leo was brought to the medical building again. He walked slowly, leaning on his mother, taking small steps like each one was heavy. Mr. Romano walked beside them, ready to hold him if he stumbled. Every step the boy took made the father feel helpless. He wished he could take the sickness into his own body, but life never worked that way. When they entered the building, nurses greeted them softly. Doctors checked charts. Machines beeped quietly. Everyone acted carefully, aware of how delicate the situation was. Mr. Romano tried to stay calm for his son. He smiled at him, held his small hand and said, "You're strong. We'll fix this." Leo smiled weakly back, but the tiredness in his eyes told another story. Inside the examination room, the doctors tried new tests: heart check, breathing check, light sensitivity. They asked Leo questions, and he answered slowly. Everything seemed normal, yet nothing felt normal. The room grew heavier. Finally, one doctor stepped aside and whispered to another, "It makes no sense." A healthy report, but a tired child. Mr. Romano heard it. His patience thinned. He stepped outside the room and walked down the hallway to breathe. That hallway had become familiar. He had walked it many times in the last few days, sometimes thinking, sometimes worrying, sometimes simply trying not to break down. But today, something caught his eye. At the far end of the hallway, a simple man was cleaning a window quietly, the janitor. Mr. Harris. His movements were slow and careful, as if he was cleaning something valuable. He was humming softly, a calming tune that made the hallway feel less tense for a moment. Mr. Romano paused. In the middle of chaos, this man seemed calm, steady, peaceful. It surprised him. Most workers avoided the family, afraid to disturb them. But this man looked like he belonged there, like he understood the silence. A thought passed through Mr. Romano's mind, simple but strong. He sees everything in this building. He didn't know why the thought came. But something inside him said the janitor had noticed more than he showed. Back inside the examination room, the doctors finished the tests. Mrs. Romano looked at the specialist with hopeful eyes. "Please, tell me something." The doctor lowered his gaze. "We know your son is weak, but we don't know what is causing it." Her hands trembled. She held Leo close, hiding her tears in his hair. Mr. Romano's heart hit its limit. He walked out again, this time with heavy steps. He leaned against a wall, rubbing his forehead. He had always been the man who fixed things, who found answers, who solved problems. But now, every expert he trusted had failed. And that scared him more than anything he had ever faced. What if there is no answer? What if the doctors are looking in the wrong place? What if time is running out? Questions kept attacking his mind. Suddenly, soft footsteps approached. Mr. Romano looked up and saw Mr. Harris again. The janitor looked at him with quiet respect. "Long day, sir?" Mr. Harris asked gently. Mr. Romano did not answer for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes, too long." A strange calmness came from the janitor's presence. It wasn't something Mr. Romano understood, but it felt comforting, like standing next to someone who carried steady light inside them. Mr. Harris hesitated, then said softly, "Your son. He is strong. I saw him earlier." Mr. Romano looked at him with surprise. "You saw him?" "I see everything in this building," Mr. Harris replied with a small smile. "I pay attention." Something in the way he said those words made Mr. Romano pause. Pay attention. It sounded simple, but deep. Before Mr. Romano could ask anything, a nurse called him back to the room. He hurried away, but the janitor's gentle eyes stayed in his mind. That evening, when the family returned to the mansion, the air was still heavy. Dinner remained untouched. Workers moved quietly. Leo rested in his room. But Mr. Romano couldn't rest. He kept remembering one thing, the calm janitor who said, "I pay attention." It was the first time that day that someone's voice brought him a small spark of hope, a spark that would soon grow into something much bigger. The next morning, The sky was covered with soft gray clouds. It felt like even the weather understood the tension in Mr. Romano's heart. He barely slept the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Leo's tired face. He kept replaying the day's events, the doctor's uncertain voices, and the endless silence that followed each failed test. But there was one moment he couldn't forget, the quiet janitor saying, "I pay attention." Those words stayed in his mind like a small spark in the dark. When the family arrived at the medical building again, Mr. Romano felt different. Still worried, yes. Still confused. But he sensed something was about to change. He didn't know why. Perhaps it was instinct. Or perhaps it was the quiet strength he had seen in the janitor's eyes the previous day. Inside, the doctors were already preparing new tests. Nurses organized papers, technicians set up machines, and everyone moved quickly. But despite all the movement, the building felt heavy, almost breathless. Leo sat in a wheelchair that morning. He was too tired to walk. His small hands rested on his lap, and his eyes followed the sunlight coming through the windows. His mother knelt beside him, brushing his hair gently. "Just a little more, sweetheart," she whispered. Leo nodded slowly. Mr. Romano stood behind them, his heart breaking a little more each time he saw his son struggle. As the doctors discussed the next steps, Mr. Romano stepped into the hallway to take a short breath. That was when he saw him again. Mr. Harris was standing near the end of the corridor, placing new cleaning supplies onto his cart. He worked the same way he always did, quiet, steady, respectful. But today, Mr. Romano looked at him differently. He didn't see just a janitor. He saw a man who watched everything with care. Their eyes met again. Mr. Harris paused, then nodded politely. "Good morning, sir." Mr. Romano took a deep breath. He wasn't sure why he walked closer, but something inside him pushed him forward. "Mr. Harris, right?" he asked. "Sir." The janitor straightened himself a little, surprised that the powerful businessman remembered his name. "You said something yesterday," Mr. Romano continued slowly. "You said you pay attention." Mr. Harris lowered his gaze for a moment, unsure where this was going. "Yes, sir. I try to." The hallway around them was quiet. No nurses passing, no doctors calling out instructions. It almost felt like the world paused to listen. "Did you notice something about my son?" Mr. Romano asked carefully. Mr. Harris's hands tightened slightly on the edge of the cleaning cart. He had been waiting for this question, yet he feared it too. He didn't want to disrespect the doctors. He didn't want to pretend he was a professional. But he also couldn't ignore the feeling that had grown inside him for days. So he spoke softly, almost like a whisper. "Sir, I might be wrong, but I think I did notice something." Mr. Romano's eyes widened, not in anger, but in sudden hope. "What did you see?" Mr. Harris glanced around, making sure no one misunderstood. Then he spoke with slow, careful words. "When your son came yesterday," he said, "I heard the way he breathed. I saw how he reacted to the hallway light, and how he touched his chest. That pattern. I read about it a long time ago." Mr. Romano's breath stopped for a moment. "You studied medicine?" Mr. Harris nodded shyly. "Just a little, sir. Only basic lessons. I couldn't finish school, but I never stopped learning. I always read when I have time." There was no pride in his voice, just honesty. "What do you think is happening to my son?" Mr. Romano asked, trying not to let his hope show too quickly. Mr. Harris swallowed. "Sir, I don't think he is sick in the way the doctors believe." Mr. Romano leaned in. "Then what?" "I think," the janitor whispered, "something in the environment is affecting him. Maybe something in your house, or something he breathes every day. Something small, something easy to overlook." The hallway became still. For a moment, Mr. Romano didn't speak. His mind raced. Environmental? Something in the house? Something small? No doctor had mentioned anything like that. Finally, he said, "Would you look at him, even for a moment?" Mr. Harris froze. He shook his head quickly. "Sir, I'm just a janitor. I'm not a real doctor. I don't want to make things worse." "You won't make things worse," Mr. Romano said firmly. "Right now, everyone is guessing, but you noticed something no one else did." The janitor stared at him, unsure. His heart felt heavy. He wanted to help, but he feared breaking rules or giving false hope. Then Mr. Romano said the words that changed everything. "Please, I am asking you as a father." Those words carried so much emotion that Mr. Harris couldn't refuse. He nodded slowly. "If you allow it, I will try." In the next few minutes, they walked toward Leo's room. Nurses stepped aside politely, surprised to see the janitor walking next to the powerful businessman. Mrs. Romano looked up with confusion when she saw them enter together. "This is Mr. Harris," her husband said gently. "He may have noticed something important." She didn't question it. She trusted anything that brought even a little hope. Mr. Harris stepped forward, calm but nervous. He knelt beside Leo, spoke softly, and observed him with gentle, respectful eyes. Within seconds, something confirmed itself inside his mind. He looked up at the father, and in a steady voice, he whispered, "Sir, I think I know what is happening." The room felt strangely quiet when Mr. Harris finally spoke. His voice was calm and steady, but everyone in the room could sense how important his words were. "I think I understand," he repeated softly. Still kneeling beside Leo. Mrs. Romano looked at him with hopeful but cautious eyes. Mr. Romano stood behind her, tense, waiting, as if every second held his entire world. Leo sat on the bed, leaning back on pillows, his small chest rising and falling gently. Mr. Harris didn't rush. He wanted to be respectful. He placed his hands on his knees and looked at Leo with warm eyes, not like a patient, but like someone he genuinely cared about. "I am not a doctor," he said carefully. "I want to make that clear, but I have seen something like this before." Mr. Romano leaned forward. "Tell us." The janitor nodded slowly. "Years ago, when I was studying, I read about a rare reaction that happens to some children. Not a sickness, not something inside their body, something outside, something around them." Mrs. Romano lightly touched her son's hand. "You mean he's reacting to something in the environment?" "Yes," Mr. Harris replied gently. "Something small, something most people would ignore." He lifted his gaze and looked at Mr. Romano. "Sir, does your house use any scented sprays, air refreshers, strong cleaning products? Anything with a fragrance used daily?" Mr. Romano blinked. Yes, we do. Many of them. The staff uses them in almost every room." He paused. "But we've used them for years." Mr. Harris nodded. "Sometimes reactions don't appear right away. Sometimes they build slowly. If Leo spent more time indoors recently, the reaction could have become stronger." Mrs. Romano's eyes widened. "He has been home more since school ended." And Mr. Harris continued softly, "Children can become sensitive very quickly. Some scents affect their breathing, their appetite, even their energy." Leo looked at them with tired curiosity, as if he understood part of the conversation. Mr. Romano crossed his arms, thinking deeply. "But doctors checked his lungs. They said everything looked normal." "That happens often," Mr. Harris explained, "because it's not the lungs that are sick. It's the reaction around them. Tests don't show it easily." The parents exchanged a long stare. The explanation sounded too simple, yet something inside them believed it. It matched things they had noticed but never connected. For the first time in weeks, the silence in the room felt like hope, not fear. "Can this be the cause of his weakness?" Mrs. Romano asked softly. "Yes," Mr. Harris said. If Leo's body is reacting to something at home, his energy will drop, his appetite will lower, he will feel dizzy. All the things you described. The father placed a hand on the wall, steadying himself. The idea was simple, almost embarrassingly simple. But no doctor had suggested it. They were all too busy searching for complicated answers. So what do we do? He asked quietly. Mr. Harris took a breath. First, remove all scented products from the house. Anything strong, anything chemical, anything sprayed daily. Clean his room with only water for now. Let him sleep in a different room for a day or two. Somewhere fresh. Somewhere simple. He paused. And bring him outside more. Fresh air will help him breathe normally again. Everything he said was gentle, harmless, and easy to test. Mrs. Romano covered her mouth, almost in disbelief. It's so simple. But it makes sense. Mr. Romano placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, feeling a wave of relief wash through him. We will do exactly what you said. But Mr. Harris wasn't finished. One more thing, he added softly. I noticed something else yesterday. They turned to him again when Leo walked through this hallway. He reacted strongly near the entrance, where the scent from the automatic spray is strongest. His breathing changed, not a lot, but enough to notice. The father's heartbeat grew faster. He remembered seeing Leo squint near that exact area. You noticed that? He whispered. Yes, Mr. Harris said simply. Because I pay attention to small things. Sometimes the answer hides in quiet places. Mrs. Romano suddenly stepped forward and took Mr. Harris's hand. Her voice shook. Thank you. Even if this is not the answer. Thank you. You're the first person to say something that feels real. Mr. Harris lowered his eyes, humbled. I only want to help. A nurse knocked gently on the door. We can prepare a fresh room for Leo if needed, she offered. Mr. Romano looked at her with new determination. Yes, do it. And remove anything with fragrance. The nurse nodded and hurried away. As they began to prepare, Mr. Harris stood quietly, unsure if he should stay or leave. But then Mr. Romano approached him. You will stay, he said softly but firmly. You started this. You stay until we see if this works. The janitor nodded, touched by the trust. Minutes later, they moved Leo to a different room. Simple and natural, with no scents, no chemicals. Nothing but clean air. Mr. Harris stood in a corner, watching with careful eyes. Leo took a deep breath, then another, then one more. And his chest relaxed a little. His shoulders loosened. His eyes looked less strained. The change was small but real. Mrs. Romano gasped softly. Covering her mouth, Mr. Romano looked at Mr. Harris with eyes full of something he had not felt in days, hope. That felt strong enough to hold. And in that tiny moment, even before the full truth came to light, they all felt something shift, the beginning of an answer. The new room prepared for Leo was simple white walls, open windows, clean curtains, and no scented sprays or strong cleaners. The moment he entered, the air felt lighter, almost peaceful. Leo looked around with tired but curious eyes, as if his small body sensed the difference immediately. Mrs. Romano helped him settle on the bed. She brushed his hair gently, her eyes full of hope but also fear. She didn't want to believe too quickly, but something inside her whispered that this moment mattered. Mr. Harris stood quietly near the doorway, hands folded, observing every small detail. He didn't want to make a mistake. He didn't want to offer false hope. But when he saw Leo breathe more freely, his heart whispered the same thing. This is right. Mr. Romano moved closer to his son and knelt beside the bed. How do you feel? He asked softly. Leo took a slow breath, then another. Better, he whispered. It was one small word, but it felt like a miracle. Mrs. Romano covered her mouth with both hands, tears rising in her eyes. She leaned in and kissed her son's forehead, her voice barely holding together. Thank you, thank you. Even the nurse standing nearby paused. Surprised by the boy's sudden ease, Mr. Romano stood up and turned toward Mr. Harris. His eyes held both shock and something deeper, gratitude that had no words, but they needed to be sure. One moment wasn't enough. We will observe him, the nurse said gently. Let's give him a few hours. Everyone agreed. Hours passed slowly. The family stayed beside Leo while Mr. Harris kept his quiet distance, standing near the window and watching both the boy and the air that moved gently through the room. Every few minutes, Leo's breathing grew steadier. His shoulders relaxed. His appetite returned a little, just enough to take a few sips of juice. The most hopeful moment came when he smiled, just a small smile, but real. His eyes no longer carried the heavy strain they had for weeks. Mrs. Romano began crying softly again, but this time her tears were filled with relief, not fear. Mr. Romano hugged her from behind, whispering, "He's coming back. He's really coming back." Meanwhile, the doctors were unaware of what was happening in the new room. They were in another part of the building, discussing advanced tests, complicated machines, and long lists of possible diagnoses. They spoke in professional tones, trying to sound confident even though they were lost. But when a nurse rushed in and told them, "The boy is improving," they stopped talking instantly. "Improving?" The head doctor asked, confused. "Yes," the nurse said breathlessly. "He's breathing better. Much better." The doctors exchanged looks, then hurried toward the new room. When they entered, they saw Leo sitting up straighter, holding his mother's hand. The surprise on their faces was clear. They checked his pulse, his breathing, his eyes. Everything looked better, far better than earlier. Mr. Harris quietly stepped aside, letting the professionals work. He didn't want to take their place. He just wanted them to see what he had noticed. The head doctor looked up at Mr. Romano. "What changed? Did you give him anything?" Mr. Romano shook his head. "No medicine. No treatment. Only this room. And," Mrs. Romano added softly, "we removed all scented products from our home." The doctors looked confused. Then Mr. Harris finally spoke in a respectful tone. "I suggested that his reaction might be caused by something environmental. Something small. Something the tests don't show easily." The room grew quiet. The doctors stared at him, surprised not because of his idea, but because a janitor had been the one to offer it. One doctor cleared his throat. "May we ask, how did you know to try that?" Mr. Harris lowered his eyes humbly. "I didn't know for sure, but I heard his breathing change when he passed certain spots yesterday. It reminded me of something I studied long ago." Another doctor stepped closer to Leo, observing him carefully. "It's possible," he admitted. "Rare, but possible." The head doctor nodded slowly. "We have seen similar reactions, but they're often overlooked because symptoms look like illness, not sensitivity." Mr. Harris said nothing more. He didn't smile, didn't boast, didn't take glory. He only looked at Leo with relief in his eyes. Over the next hour, Leo improved even more. He asked for a small bowl of soup and finished half of it. His color returned slightly, and he even laughed quietly when his mother joked about his messy hair. It was like watching sunlight return after a long, dark storm. Mr. Romano walked toward Mr. Harris again. But this time, his steps were slow, almost careful, like a man approaching someone important. He placed his hand gently on the janitor's shoulder. "I don't have words," he said softly. "You gave my son something no one else could give. You gave him a chance." Mr. Harris looked down, trying to hide the emotion in his eyes. "I only paid attention, sir." "No," Mr. Romano replied. "You cared. And that made the difference." The doctors discussed the next steps, removing products from the house, keeping Leo in fresh air, and following Mr. Harris's suggestion closely. For the first time, they seemed to respect the janitor's knowledge. Later that evening, when Leo was moved again for rest, the family gathered around him with gentle smiles. The boy looked peaceful, comfortable, almost like himself again. Before leaving for the day, Mr. Harris turned to go quietly. As he always did, but Mr. Romano called after him, "Mr. Harris." He stopped and looked back. The powerful businessman walked up to him slowly, then extended his hand, a handshake full of gratitude, respect, and something deeper. "You are part of this family's hope now," he said. Mr. Harris's eyes softened. He accepted the handshake with both hands, and in that moment, in a simple, quiet hallway, something changed forever, not just for Leo, but for everyone who witnessed the truth. Sometimes the person who saves you is not the expert, but the one who sees what others forget to see. The next morning arrived softer than usual, with gentle sunlight falling through the mansion windows. The Romano home, once filled with worry and whispered fear, now held a warm calmness. For the first time in many weeks, everyone in the house felt hope, not small or uncertain, but strong and real. Leo woke up earlier than usual. When his mother walked into his room, she found him sitting up, stretching his arms slowly. He smiled at her, brighter than before, and said, "Morning, Mama." Those two simple words brought tears to her eyes. She rushed to him, hugging him tightly, yet carefully. "My baby, you look so much better." Leo laughed softly. "I feel better." When Mr. Romano entered the room, he stopped in the doorway. For a moment, he didn't move. He just watched his son, breathing normally, eyes glowing again. It was a sight he thought he might never see. Slowly, he walked toward the bed and placed his hand on Leo's shoulder. "You're getting strong again," he whispered. Leo nodded with a smile. "I'm hungry." It was the sweetest sentence Mr. Romano had heard in a long time. The mansion staff noticed the change immediately. Workers walked through the halls with lighter steps. The chef prepared a gentle breakfast for Leo, smiling to himself as he chopped fresh vegetables. Even the guards outside stood with straighter backs, sensing that the weight on the family had lifted. But inside the medical building, where the family returned for a final check, the change felt even more powerful. Doctors who had spent days giving explanations without answers now looked at Leo with genuine relief. They checked his pulse, his breathing, and his eyes. Everything showed improvement. The head doctor nodded with a soft smile. "He's recovering well," he said. "Whatever you changed, it helped him greatly." Mrs. Romano placed her hand over her heart. "We just removed sprays and changed his room, and gave him a chance to breathe fresh air." Mr. Harris added gently from the back of the room. All eyes turned to him, this time not with confusion, but with respect. After the tests, Mr. Romano requested all the workers and doctors to step out for a moment. Only the family and Mr. Harris remained in the room. Mr. Romano turned toward the janitor, his eyes warm and full of meaning. "Mr. Harris," he said slowly, "you have done something for my family that I can never repay. You saw something no one else did. You listened when others were too busy. And because of you, my son is recovering." Mr. Harris lowered his eyes shyly. "I just wanted to help, sir." "You helped more than anyone," Mrs. Romano added softly. She stepped forward and took Mr. Harris's hands in hers. "You gave us hope when we had none. We will never forget that." Leo, still sitting on the bed, lifted his head and smiled at Mr. Harris. "Thank you," he whispered. The janitor felt his heart warm like sunlight. He had never expected to be thanked by such a powerful family, especially not in such a sincere, emotional way. But Mr. Romano wasn't finished. He walked toward the window, took a deep breath, and then faced Mr. Harris again. "I want you to be more than a janitor," he said firmly. "You have a gift. You observe things people miss. You understand people. You care. And I believe you should continue your studies." Mr. Harris blinked with surprise. "Sir, I want to support your education," Mr. Romano continued. "Fully, whatever school you need, whatever books, whatever training. You will have it." I will personally make sure you get the chance you never had." Tears filled Mr. Harris's eyes. No one had ever offered him such a future. He had dreamed of studying again, but dreams often stay silent when life becomes heavy. Now someone was offering to carry that dream with him. I don't know what to say," he whispered. "Say yes," Mrs. Romano said gently. "You deserve it." Mr. Harris looked at Leo again. The boy's eyes were bright, full of life. That alone gave him the courage he needed. Slowly, with emotion in his voice, he said, "Yes, thank you. Truly, thank you." The next hour was filled with warm conversation. The family talked about how they would change the house environment, how they would watch over Leo carefully, and how they planned to create a fresh new start for their son. Leo leaned back on his pillows, listening with a peaceful smile. Every now and then, he glanced at Mr. Harris as if he wanted him to stay a little longer. By the time the family returned home, Leo was already asking for small snacks and smiling at the workers who greeted him. And as for Mr. Harris, he returned to his cleaning cart that day with a heart full of emotion. But something was different. People passing by didn't overlook him anymore. Nurses nodded at him respectfully. Doctors offered him small smiles. Even the building seemed brighter. He didn't walk with pride, he was too humble for that. Instead, he walked with quiet gratitude. He didn't save a life alone. He simply paid attention, cared deeply, and spoke when his heart told him to. And that made all the difference. Weeks later, Leo was fully healthy again. He ran through the mansion garden with laughter, calling for his parents to watch him. His energy had returned, his smile had returned, and his life had returned. One afternoon, Mr. Harris visited the mansion for the first time. The family welcomed him inside with warmth, not as a worker, not as a helper, but as a friend. Leo ran to him and hugged him gently. "You saved me," he said. Mr. Harris knelt down and hugged him back. "No, young man," he said with a smile. "You were strong. I only noticed what others didn't." Mr. Romano, standing nearby, added softly, "No title, no power, no position can make a person great. Only kindness and attention can." And from that day forward, the Romano family treated Mr. Harris with respect, not because of his job, but because of his character. He never asked for honor, but he earned it with his eyes, his heart, and his quiet wisdom. The story ends with one truth: sometimes the greatest help comes from the most unexpected person.